Greetings, viewers. This is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, my YouTube channel. Today we are flying into meltdown territory, so it may get a little bumpy. Yeah, that's it from the flight deck.
Now, before we get down to the nitty-gritty of an autistic meltdown, how about we start by defining what is an autistic meltdown? It might seem a little bit strange, but I figure one of the best ways to start off this explanation, this definition, is to tell you what isn't an autistic meltdown. I hope that makes sense. Okay, well, a tantrum, that's not an autistic meltdown. See, a tantrum is controllable. Really, it's an act of manipulation, right? It's an act or a show put on to try and get something that someone's not allowing you to have or do. Someone acting over dramatic in a moment, or being what would be classed as dramatic, that's not a meltdown. Again, to be dramatic, you would have to be able to control your drama skills in that dramatic scene you're portraying, right? Well, that's not a meltdown. Selfishness or acting selfish, that's not a meltdown. You can't look at someone having an autistic meltdown and go, stop being so selfish. They can't stop being anything because they're not being anything. They're having an uncontrollable autistic meltdown. Acting out or attention-seeking behavior, again, that's not an autistic meltdown. Only kids can have autistic meltdowns, right? No. Absolutely not. Autistic meltdowns are experienced by autistic people through their entire life. And the case could be made, and I will definitely make it in my case, the case could be made that, in fact, you can be prone to more meltdowns as you get older because there are more stresses, more sophisticated, complex stresses and demands in your life. And I guess piggybacking onto the whole only kids can have autistic meltdowns, which we know isn't true, you can't parent or punish autistic meltdowns out of an autistic person. No. So putting that all together, the knots, autistic meltdowns are not controllable. Autistic meltdowns are not intentional. Bottom line is, an autistic meltdown is an uncontrollable reaction to our brain being triggered by environmental, emotional, social, physical, and other types of overstimulation or understimulation. Okay, it's a brain response. Remember, as an autistic person, really the only thing that is different and the only thing that provides a diagnosis is having a differently wired brain, an autistic brain. So an autistic meltdown is a reaction from our brain when it's over or understimulated through one of the areas we've just talked about. You could also look at it, I guess, as the brain sending out a signal that it's in distress. It's a sign of distress. And finally, just so we're clear, not only are they not intentional and not controllable, but they are a normal, natural part of being an autistic person from birth to death. So an autistic meltdown is triggered by different things for different autistic people. So let's talk about some of the causes of autistic meltdown. Clearly causes, or as I refer to them, triggers, can't always be identified. Like I said, different triggers for different people. And I'm not trying to provide you with an exhaustive list. Let's just go through some of the known triggers, some of the known causes for autistic meltdowns. When we were chatting about the definition, we talked about the idea that the main trigger point for an autistic meltdown is, in simple terms, an overstimulation or an understimulation that is triggering the autistic brain to have a reaction, a distress call. So in practical terms, things that you might actually experience that you can keep an eye out for now, okay? What could cause an autistic meltdown? Here's a trigger: a change of plans, last minute change of routine. That can absolutely trigger an autistic meltdown. Changes, disruptions, barriers into going about our day-to-day life the way we need it to be, which is planned out, structured, routine-based, can have a significant and serious impact on an autistic person. I've talked about this. This isn't a joke. You don't grow out of this. It's very important. Look out for it. You, as a potentially neurotypical, non-autistic person who has an autistic person in their life, may well be able to look out for these things now. Oh, I know I've got to change this now, or this is going to this is going to throw a spanner into the works, or, oh man, okay, well, at least I know that I can work out how to navigate this, provide notice, work out other solutions. There's workarounds here. As an autistic guy who's married with 2 kids, one is an autistic 7-year-old, I can tell you sometimes there's just too many demands, too much stress. Simply put, and I talked about this in my What is Autism and going through the diagnostic criteria, when the needs, demands, stresses exceed your capacities to deal with them as an autistic person, you are 100% clearly going to experience some sort of reaction. And it will probably be something like an autistic meltdown. That is a best case scenario. You do not want to go into autistic burnout territory, trust me. Another big trigger for me, and certainly another big trigger in general terms, is experiencing high levels of emotions, okay? You know, this myth that there's no empathy, we don't feel emotions. We can be hypersensitive to the emotions of others, and we can certainly feel emotions ourselves at a really hyper level. That isn't the issue. The issue is expressing them, identifying them, understanding them, dealing with them, right? So when an autistic person experiences high level of emotions, becomes emotionally overwhelmed, and they can't identify those emotions or express those emotions, it can 100% contribute to autistic meltdown. Leaving our safe space can cause an autistic meltdown, just like that. What do you mean by safe space? Autistic people have safe spaces. I mean, usually it's your house, it's where you live, right? You know, I've got a 7-year-old and he loves the outdoors more than he loves the indoors. But it's harder for me to get him outdoors than it is to keep him indoors, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make logical sense to people when you think about it. But it does to me because I know he's obviously riddled with anxiety. And also this is his safe, comfortable zone. To go outside is a gamble. It pays off every time because it's fresh air and it's sun and it's fun. But it's an exiting of your safe space. Leaving a safe space, forcing someone to leave their safe space can and probably will trigger an autistic meltdown. And something you may have already noticed with autistic people in your life, certainly a big trigger, can be experiencing confrontation. In addition to that, confrontational environments can trigger autistic meltdowns. So we've defined it, identified and discussed some of the causes of autistic meltdowns. Now, let's talk about what do they feel like? What can an autistic meltdown actually feel like for an autistic person? Because if you have an autistic person in your life and you aren't autistic, you might look at them and really go, what is happening here? What is going on? So let's give you an insight to, again, hopefully raise that level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people. Oh, and obviously it goes without saying that an autistic meltdown can feel different for every different autistic person. One of the first feelings you can experience when you are having an autistic meltdown is, I guess, a sense of panic or a sense of fear. They can also feel like you've just lost control. Again, that comes down to the uncontrollable nature of them because they aren't brought on in an act of manipulation or behavior. So they come on as a response from your brain. And when you're experiencing them, you really do feel like a passenger. And sometimes autistic meltdowns can feel like they're going to last forever. You know, like you can't control them and you're just a passenger and it's never going to stop. And going with that, obviously, that can impact your heart rate, right? You can have a fast heart rate. You feel like basically your heart is beating out of your chest. You can feel uneasy. You can feel agitated, irritable. And what's also really important to understand is autistic meltdowns can be external or internal. I want to say that because this idea that all autistic people are kind of like the Hulk, right? You know, they can come across looking pretty neurotypically normal and suddenly out of nowhere they go green, monstery, and it's just not the case. You can have a meltdown which is an external meltdown, like a manifestation externally or a manifestation internally. That might cause people to what we class as shutdown. It's not out of the norm for someone to have an autistic meltdown, shutdown, where they actually are remaining still. They're in the middle of something they can't control, but they look still and calm. But it doesn't mean they are. Let's add a layer on top of the whole, what do they feel like? Let's talk about what do they look like? They clearly manifest differently for every autistic person. There isn't one look for an autistic meltdown. Autistic meltdowns can manifest as erratic actions, They can look erratic. Erratic actions like, say, pacing, running, bolting, jumping, stomping, yelling, crying. I mean, you get it. Erratic behavior. They can look like that. I'm not saying they are, I'm saying how they look, to give you some sort of insight into autistic meltdowns. Because as I said, they look different for every single person, and every person has meltdowns that look different. You don't have your like on-brand meltdown look. They can also lead to harmful or aggressive stimming. An autistic meltdown can look agitated, angry. It can look like someone is lashing out. Again, they're not, because these are all emotions. These are all chosen behaviors and actions. And an autistic meltdown is an uncontrollable response from your brain. But it can look like that, like a lashing out. It can also look like someone's gone completely quiet, just shut down, gone non-speaking. You can also come across non-responsive. All right, so if you have an autistic person in your life, it could be a child, it could be a friend, a family member, it could be your partner. Let's go through the what not to do. Do not do when the autistic person in your life is having a meltdown. I understand it can be hard, but please do not get angry, okay? Do not get emotional. Do not raise your voice to an autistic person having a meltdown. Again, if you're a parent or a carer or maybe even a partner, sometimes in the heat of the moment, you can raise your voice. It doesn't mean you're yelling or screaming. It just means you're raising your voice. You're not speaking in a calm manner. You need to speak calmly, that's for sure, because it sends, I guess it sends a signal of reassurance and comfort, but also don't talk down to an autistic person having a meltdown. We don't become animals or robots or babies while we are having an autistic meltdown. So just be really careful. Just maintain that calm, reassuring, comfortable tone. This is one of my big things that I'm always trying to get people to understand. Please don't judge autistic meltdowns. Just like if the autistic person in your life likes to stim, don't judge the stim. 99.9% of all my stimming isn't done with toys and tools that look kind of cool. It's done with things that you don't really expect to see or want to see, right? So it could be just fidgeting with your own body, your fingers, your hair, your nails, whatever. I get it. Weird noises, tapping, so that's, and stimming's another conversation, and we've done videos on that. But look, it's the same thing. It's a judgment thing. Don't judge the person in your life having an autistic meltdown. Keeping in mind that if you show judgment, well, without even knowing it, you're also probably showing other things that are even more hurtful, which could be resentment, just a pure lack of caring, love, empathy. These are things that the autistic person in your life needs. So you might not be trying to send that signal, but by judging it, by trying to label it in some negative way, you're basically sending that signal. I resent you having an uncontrollable reaction because you have a different wired brain that you didn't ask for. I resent you for that, like seriously. Don't tell an autistic person having a meltdown to just stop it and move on. If the meltdown's been triggered for environmental reasons or sensory reasons, don't force the autistic person to remain in that environment. You'd be surprised, this happens. You might be out, right? Outdoors, you might be out with friends or family, you might be out doing things that are important to you, and you think, well, you just have to get over it, mate. Like, just deal with it. Or take them to the corner, or take them to the car. Like, no. That's forcing them to stay in the environment that got them there. Don't do that. In addition to not forcing them to stay in that environment that got them there, don't withhold comfort things. Just because you might be embarrassed or feel weird or, oh, you left it at home, don't withhold the comfort things, which could be stimming toys, that could be cuddle toys, that could be whatever. That could be music. It could be games. Don't withhold comfort things from an autistic person when they are in the meltdown phase. And in addition to that, and really on the flip side, don't do the reverse, which I see from time to time, which is bribing. Don't bribe your way out of an autistic meltdown. How do you think you can bribe someone out of an uncontrollable reaction? In saying that though, when I get to what you should do, one of the things I will suggest is different forms of distraction, which is not bribing. It might sound like the same, but it's not. Anyway, we'll get to that soon. And finally, and in my opinion, the most important do not do when an autistic person is having a meltdown, do not ignore them. Ignoring means you're telling them you're on your own. To not ignore them means that even if you aren't engaged in the meltdown area, you're still in a space where they can see a reassuring, safe face. Ignoring them shows them that there's no one here for them. And again, a great example of the difference between an autistic meltdown and a tantrum. What's the first thing you're told when you have kids and they have tantrums? Just ignore them. Just keep walking, right? You see kids in the shops on the floor, right? Because the parents have moved on. Okay, that makes sense because they're acting, they're putting it on, they're manipulating, they're trying to get their own way. So this is a difference, right? You ignore tantrums, do not ignore autistic people having meltdowns. I'm sure you've written down all the nots. And now let's talk about what you should do, the to-dos, when an autistic person in your life is having an autistic meltdown. Instead of forcing people to stay, you should leave the environments that have triggered them. Look, it might be inconvenient to you or the people you're with, but what do you want? Do you want to help them or not? If you can't stay in or take them to a safe space, a safe place, you should definitely try and find a quiet area, an area where you can, in effect, hide away from the world. You could offer them their noise-cancelling headphones if that's something they have. You could offer them just their standard everyday headphones with or without music. Not bribing, but distract them with things that bring them joy. For example, it might be a movie, a TV show, a game. I can only assume you take this stuff with you, right? You've got access when you go places to games, TV, movies, music, these types of things. Well, it's a distraction. Just give them the things that you know brings them joy. Hey, do you want to watch that movie again? Do you want to watch that show? Want to listen to music? Want to play this game? You could offer them their favorite stimming toy or their favorite stimming tool. You could offer them their weighted blanket or their weighted cuddle toy. Sure, there's some stimming you don't want to encourage if it's aggressive and harmful, but you should absolutely encourage safe stimming that will ground the autistic person in your life. This may be more relevant to autistic adults. It certainly works for me from time to time. My wife will encourage me to go and have some alone time or to go and work on my content. Some time to spend on your special interest, your passions. Alone time is massive to autistic people. It's simple. You don't grow out of it. Getting married and having kids doesn't change your need for alone time. Sometimes a firm hug can help. This is a consent thing, right? Sometimes autistic people having a meltdown might love touch, a firm hug. And other times, and this is certainly my experiences, might be just completely repulsed by any kind of touch. It's like, don't touch me. So that's why you've got to read the situation and maybe ask them, would you like a bear hug? Would you like a hug? Would you like a firm hug? Would you like a weighted blanket? Right? You've got to ask that question because either way can help or make it worse. If an autistic person in your life is having a meltdown, you could encourage them to go outside. I know it sounds simplistic, but go outside in the sun, in the fresh air, and encourage them not only to go outside, in their own space, in their own time, maybe by themselves, but encourage them to just breathe in that fresh air slowly and deeply. But most importantly, reassurance is key. Simply understanding what they're going through and what they're experiencing, and that they're not intending to manipulate or they somehow have control over this, and simply providing them with the reassurance that you're there, you won't judge them, you'll just help them if needed, you're going to be here for them, they're safe, is sometimes all that's required. Non-judgment, reassurance, understanding. I really do hope this video has in some way helped you raise that level of understanding of autistic people in your life or of the autistic community in general. Please take the time to check out more of my videos, watch them, share them, and I would love it if you would take the time to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until the next video, thank you so much for watching and we'll talk soon.